Hello guys! Welcome to another thrilling episode of our cooking escapade. Today we are set to explore the world of barbecue mastery. If you are already guessing, yes, it is the holy grail of barbecue. We will be cooking smoked brisket. Smoked brisket, commonly referred to as the holy grail of barbecue, is a smoked cut of beef that comes from the lower breast or lower chest of a cow. A perfectly smoked brisket is tender, juicy, and packed with flavor. Making a perfect brisket can be quite a challenge, but don't worry, I've got you covered. I'll walk you through a step-by-step guide to achieving the perfect juicy bite. This isn't just a recipe. I'll share tips and tricks to help you avoid overcooking or undercooking your smoked barbecue. Let's dive in and master the art of smoking brisket together. Before we go into cooking proper, let's take a look at the lineup of ingredients to smoke our brisket. We will need just a few things. 1 12 to 14 pound whole packer brisket, 5 tablespoons or 30 grams of coarse black pepper, 2 tablespoons 36 grams coarse kosher salt, 2 tablespoons 14 grams onion powder optional, 3 tablespoons yellow mustard or olive oil. Aside from the quality and type of meat you select, the rub, brine, smoking fuel, and type of grill you use all play a part in the flavor of your brisket. Therefore, everything counts in making a perfect brisket. Also, the one important ingredient needed to get a perfect brisket is time. Patience is a virtue when it comes to smoking brisket. Alright, now let's prep the brisket. It needs to be trimmed. We trim for 2 reasons. 1. We want to remove excess fat that will prevent you from directly seasoning the meat and eliminate any unattractive edge of meat that could make the finished product look less attractive. The trimming will be done with the fat side facing up. Remember, we are trimming the excess fat and not the entire thing. Smoking brisket is a long cook, so you want to keep at least a 1/4 inch layer of fat all over the brisket to act as a protective barrier while it cooks. Now, on to seasoning the brisket. Grab a bowl and mix the pepper, salt, and onion powder. Give it a good stir until everything is well blended. Coat the brisket with mustard or olive oil and apply the seasoning evenly over all sides of the brisket. Be generous as you rub the mix, so you have it evenly distributed all over. This gives every bite a uniform taste. Different chefs try out different seasoning techniques. Some chefs inject the mix. This helps you get a slice of juicy meat. You can taste the flavor with each bite. You can also decide to marinate. Just get a bigger bowl, prepare the mix, and immerse in the meat. Then let it sit in the refrigerator overnight or longer. You can also decide to add other ingredients to the seasoning to fit your taste. Flavor your brisket however you want. You can add barbecue sauce, beer, or broth. Let's discuss wrapping the brisket. It's totally up to you whether you want to wrap it in or not. Wrapping isn't a rigid rule. It's just a common method to speed up cooking. When you smoke a brisket, water sweats out and cools it down. Wrapping helps prevent this. I use butcher paper to wrap the briskets. I like wrapping my brisket because it gives me more control over how it looks in the end. Without wrapping, the brisket can sometimes get too charred. Wrapping gives it a smoother surface. Here's an interesting twist. You can initially leave the brisket unwrapped and then choose to wrap it once the internal temperature reaches around 165 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. This approach allows you to enjoy the best of both worlds. The initial exposure to smoke for flavor development and the benefits of wrapping for moisture retention and temperature control. So that's the game plan. A strategic blend of techniques to achieve a perfectly smoked brisket. Now it's time to smoke. But before then, what type of wood is best used to smoke our brisket? Here comes our chance to be adventurous. No strict rule here. The choice of wood is dependent on your choice of smoke flavor. When it comes to smoke flavor, every piece of wood brings something to the table. Hickory is often mentioned for its robust flavor. You can also try to mix it with milder woods like oak to balance the flavors. Another thing to try out is to sweeten the smoke with either apple or cherry wood. Maple wood will also do a good job of sweetening. You might also want to try the nutty flavor of pecan wood. That will be creative. The nutty flavor adds a whole new layer of depth to the brisket. The flavor especially blends well with the taste from the spicy mix. Before we place the brisket in the oven, we preheat the oven. Set your pellet grill to 225 degrees Fahrenheit and preheat, lid closed, for 15 minutes. Now let's place the bare brisket on the grill grate with the fat side down. Then, cook for approximately 6 hours. Or cook till the internal temperature reaches 160 degrees Fahrenheit. This brings us to one question. Why place the brisket fat side down? Well, I placed the fat side down for 2 reasons. 1. In culinary presentation, it is paramount. With the fat side up, you are placing your presentation side directly in contact with the grill grates. This doesn't allow the characteristic brisket bark to form. Secondly, brisket placed with the fat side down tastes better. When the fat side is up, the fat continues dripping down from the cap to the sides and can wash away your seasoning. It's 6 hours already. Now we remove to wrap. Remove the brisket from the grill and wrap it in butcher paper or foil. Place the wrapped brisket back on the grill and continue cooking until the internal temperature reaches 200 degrees Fahrenheit. This should be an additional 3 to 4 hours. How do I know my brisket is cooked enough? There are 2 different methods for confirming this: using a wireless thermometer or observing the surface texture. I will recommend the thermometer method. To know if your smoked brisket is done, simply insert your probe. You're checking if the probe easily slides in, like it does with room temperature butter, typically occurring between 200 and 205 degrees Fahrenheit. This suggests that the temperature alone isn't the definitive sign of a properly cooked brisket. Tenderness is equally important. So, even at 205 degrees, if the probe isn't sliding in, you've got to give the meat a bit more time. You can also decide to observe the smoked brisket's characteristic bark. The signature bark structure is due to a phenomenon known as the Maillard reaction, which is the process by which the natural sugars in your meat form crust when you smear meat at high temperatures. These sugars usually caramelize within minutes. The same thing happens at low temperatures over time when you smoke brisket or any kind of meat. Once you've confirmed your brisket is done, remove the brisket off the grill and let it rest for at least an hour. If you are the patient type, I recommend 2 hours. This allows the hot juices to redistribute throughout the meat, giving the brisket a uniform taste. The smoked brisket is ready for bite. Unwrap the brisket to get the best mouthful cut against the grain and take your first bite. Yummy, right? You've just made a perfectly smoked brisket! And that's it! The simple steps of making smoked brisket. As for the time it takes to prepare smoked brisket, it varies depending on the size. For a 12 to 14 pound brisket, you'll want to keep it in the smoker for at least 12 hours. Here's the breakdown. Smoke the brisket for 6 to 8 hours initially until it reaches an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Then, wrap the brisket in unwaxed butcher's paper and return it to the smoker for another 3 to 4 hours until it reaches 203 degrees Fahrenheit. Finally, let the meat rest for an hour before unwrapping and serving. This resting period allows the juices to redistribute, resulting in a more tender and flavorful brisket. Before we call it a day on this episode, if you've prepared a good amount of brisket, you probably will have leftovers. Then you are in for a next day treat. To enjoy the same flavor you had off the grill, all you need to do is cook your smoked brisket in its juices using a drip pan covered with aluminum foil until it reaches serving temperature. which is about 140 degrees thereabout. With that, we've come to the end of this episode. Hope you haven't been missing out on the behind-the-scenes fun. You can also follow us on social media for that. Also, don't forget to leave a comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification. If you enjoyed this recipe, you don't want to miss the next one. We have a lot more waiting for you. Join us in our culinary journey filled with tantalizing flavors and exciting food adventures. You sure don't want to miss out on a single delicious moment. Don't forget to like and share with your food-loving friends. Till the next time we meet, have fun!